How can we create economic opportunity in the face of climate change? That's the goal of the Climate Resilient Employees for a Sustainable Tomorrow, or CREST, an initiative of the Aries Charitable Foundation, Jobs for the Future, and WRI Institute. Earth Day marks the third anniversary of CREST, which emphasizes the importance of working with community-based organizations to create quality green jobs, particularly for underserved populations in regions facing climate challenges. Sara Vander Zanden, Director for Jobs for the Future, JFF, joins me to discuss the progress CREST and its job creation partners have made so far and where they hope to be in the near future.
So the big goals of this work: 1, to train and place 25,000 people in quality green jobs by 2027. Big, lofty goal. We also have goals to increase awareness around what a quality green job is. How do you qualify? What are skills that you need to get into a quality green job? And then we also have a goal of exposing leaders nationally and internationally to the work that we're doing around quality green jobs.
And when you talk about a quality green job, what is your definition?
It's such a good question. JFF wrote a paper at the beginning of CREST answering that exact question. Essentially, a green job is anything that integrates green skills. So you can think of any traditional industry. You can think of construction. You can think of manufacturing. You can think of textiles or energy. There are ways to make all of these industries and all of these jobs green through the integration of green skills. And then the quality component comes really into play when we think about JFF's job quality framework. So there are a lot of things that make a job a quality job. Some of those main components are high wages, where you can sustain a family. We think about benefits, comprehensive benefits that allow you to take care of yourself and your family and your health. We think about growth opportunities within a company or organization. We think about flexibility to shape your schedule, knowledge of what your schedule and hours are going to be a couple weeks in advance so you can plan your life around that. And we also think about dignity. Does this job make you feel more whole as a person? Does it honor who you are and the skills that you bring?
I like the idea that any job can be a green job. I don't think people really think of it that way. They have the idea of a wind turbine or EV battery work. Yes, those are industries, but jobs, it could be an HVAC, and we're doing this in New Orleans. And so it could be water mitigation because of the climate. Are you trying to match the job opportunities to the region that you're in?
Yes. JFF is kind of taking the backseat in this work, which is a cool role. We are really letting the regions themselves lead the work. And the regions that we're working with in the Quality Green Jobs Regional Challenge are 6 winning regions out of an initial pool of 101 applicants. And so they've proven, they know their communities, they know the climate risks, they know the job opportunities, the industries, the employers, who's looking for workers. They know what workers need in terms of wraparound supports. So the regions are telling us, here is where we need to lean in. And some of those areas are, like you mentioned, New Orleans, which is where we are now. They're really focused on construction and green infrastructure. Every time it rains here, there's flooding. And so they're thinking about hyperlocal solutions to stormwater management. It takes a workforce, a trained and skilled workforce, to build these stormwater management parks. It takes a trained and skilled workforce to maintain them. And these are high quality, high paying jobs. So that's one example of how your average job, construction job, can really contribute to the sustainability of a community.
In the training component, you're leaving it to the regions to do that themselves. You're supporting it, you're helping fund it. What kind of training are they going through?
It is highly regionally dependent, but some of the really cool ones are in Portland, for example. Our partner there is Portland General Electric, and they're spearheading a coalition of 80 statewide partners, from employers to training providers to community-based organizations. And they are really looking at pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. They're making sure that these programs are accessible to people who are currently incarcerated so that when they re-enter society, they can immediately go into an earn and learn situation with one of 3 union apprenticeship programs, which is amazing. Portland is also, as is Lyra, Colorado, both regions are thinking a lot about dual enrollment and CTE pathways, career and technical education. These are certified statewide pathways that are integrated into high school programs. And I love something that Lyra, Colorado said, one of their partners, when I was out there last year, is that high schooler engagement is a national crisis. Every single high school principal or teacher you talk to will talk about how there's an engagement crisis. Students are just not engaged in the curriculum. And the antidote to that, the solution, is oftentimes hands-on learning opportunities. So CTE pathways, technical training, are really a new and important opportunity for high schoolers who are otherwise feeling disconnected and disengaged from education.
And also what I like about these programs, and the CTE is a good example of that, and the dual enrollment, there's usually an employer component. So the employer has partnered with the educators, whether it's at a high school level or community college or even a college level, to give them like this list of things. This is what I need from this community.
In Portland, Portland General Electric is a huge employer, but they always talk about it's the work that they do depends upon other industries doing their work really well too. So they're an electrical company, but they also need to rely on construction companies doing their work really well. They need to rely on all these different industries integrating sustainability practices. And then the other thing I want to say too about employers that was surprising to me coming into this work, I think I had a vision at the beginning of working with really large employers because we have this really ambitious goal of training and placing 25,000 people. So in my mind, I think economies of scale, what's most efficient? Let's go for these really big employers. But across the regions, most are working with small and mid-sized employers. And sometimes it's companies who consider themselves green. Oftentimes it's your local HVAC company. It's like, holy cow, we're doing a lot of heat pumps lately. Or there's a big opportunity here to invest in this more. We need to train our workforce. We need skilled workers to do this. One that really stands out too, an employer, when I was in Knoxville, Tennessee last year, visiting our partner on the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, they brought us to Telos Global, which is a tier 1 automotive supplier. They're making parts for electric cars. I come in there and I'm asking all these questions about like, how do you feel about being a green employer in the South, like in Appalachia? What is that identity like? And it just wasn't an identity that really resonated at all. It's what the market is telling them to do. It's allowing them to grow and provide really high quality jobs to their employees. And that's it. It's great that it's green, and it's also just about economic opportunity.
I think that's a very important point because I've done a lot of stories on green, climate resilient jobs, and it depends on where you're at and what they call it. Honestly, when I talk to folks in Mississippi, green was not a term that people warmed to. But when I said, are you doing jobs that are keeping your water clean so you can go fishing? And it was, yes, absolutely. Or towns along the Mississippi. And it was about having good, clean drinking water. So it really does depend on what community you're in.
Yeah. And what I love about that too is we're finding universal values when we're doing that. It's not as much about dancing around the topic. I don't like to think of it that way. It's just like, well, what is the common denominator? For example, when I was in Salt Lake City and Logan in Utah last year, we were talking about green jobs, and green and sustainability and climate change are not resonant with many of the folks who we were gathering there. But you talk about preserving natural resources. You talk about taking care of your community and the land so that future generations can thrive. That resonates. And so to me, that's beautiful. Like we all care about the same thing. And if we can just find a way to talk about it, then we're golden.
So tell me about what's going on in New York. What kind of work are you doing around green and climate resiliency in New York?
In the southern tier of New York, there's a big focus on battery manufacturing. I love what the folks at the University of Buffalo are doing and New Energy New York. That's kind of the coalition that has come together to support workforce training in the battery manufacturing space. They are developing a safety training that is XR, so extended reality, and will be open source. So there is currently, despite all of the battery manufacturing happening across the United States, there is no standardized safety training. And this is not a career field without risks. Technicians are going in without any standardized safety training. And so they are standardizing it. They are making it open source and available to all training programs, all employers nationwide. And I love what Stacy Johnson at the University at Buffalo said. I was asking her as we were kind of thinking through the model, like, what? Okay, so safety, but like what else? And she's like, Sarah, we can't have quality jobs if they're not safe jobs.
That makes perfect sense. And then you're right. I don't think people think about that. They think, oh, we'll just go in and make batteries. So one of the regional partners that is in the challenge is the Industrial Commons, and they're in North Carolina, a textile community. Tell me about what they're doing there to create green jobs.
Yes, we love the Industrial Commons. So, as you said, this is a textile community. I often say that I'm from an apple farming community. Like, where you're from, the economy is such a huge part of it. And for Morganton, North Carolina, textiles are the heritage legacy industry. Historically, the industry has provided jobs for the community, but the industry has not been very sustainable. And there was a greater opportunity to really root wealth in the community for the employees working for these textile companies. So the Industrial Commons is doing just that. They have an employee-owned model. They care deeply about rooting wealth in the community, and they are committed to a circular economy approach to textiles, really increasing the sustainability of the industry. And what I love about the Industrial Commons is they're all about their community, but they're also thinking about how this model can be replicated elsewhere. So one example that they gave is a ton of carpet manufacturing happens in a small town just like theirs. I can't remember what state, it's in the South. And they're like, what if we could just give them everything that we've had to learn the hard way and tell them here's how you do it, kind of give them the blueprint so they can replicate it. And what a difference that would make if every carpet, the carpet in this hotel room, if in all of our homes was made even 20% more sustainably. Think about what a difference that can make. And if we do that across all industries. So that's one of the things we're really excited about as the work continues to roll out is we'll be documenting these blueprints across each region and really identifying for other regional leaders what's replicable and what you can kind of take and adapt to your own circumstances. A lot of the materials that we're developing will be field facing and hopefully very accessible. One of the things I'm committed to is making sure we're not just documenting the model and the blueprint, but making the tools for getting there accessible. I have an operations mind. So I'm always thinking about can we just please templatize this MOU for employer engagement? Can we just make this curriculum publicly accessible? Why do we need to reinvent the wheel every single time? And JFF is very committed to that, and the regions are committed to that as well. So check back in probably 18 months, and the website will be full of open source resources.
What made JFF say, we're all in on climate resilient jobs?
I have two little kids, almost 1 and almost 4 years old. And I religiously watch Good Morning America in the morning. It's just a comfort that I've had since I was a little kid. And I have become so aware of how every single day my kids are sitting there with me watching the world on fire, watching floods, watching unprecedented heat waves. Climate crises are not going away, and we need a trained workforce to help address these challenges. And we need local workforces who are trained and ready to address the local challenges so that it's local business owners and local workers who have economic opportunity following these climate disasters.
We have a lot of people who need better jobs. There are a lot of marginalized communities that have been kept out. They have not had the access to good paying jobs. And the jobs you're describing, as you say, a lot of them are family sustaining, they're union with benefits, and they're necessary in a community. So how are you getting word out to those people that there is opportunity and it's not that far from where they live?
Yeah, it's such a good question and so important. So, when we were shaping the regional challenge, we required every anchor partner, which is our direct grant recipient, to put together a network of partners. And we required all of them to have CBOs, community based organizations, who are directly engaging with these target populations. Again, we let the regions, we really turned to them and said who most needs access to quality jobs, who most stands to benefit from entering these quality green jobs. Many of them said women, many said people of color, many said immigrants, rural communities. We heard about people who are currently or formerly incarcerated needing job opportunities. So we really turned to the regions and said, who do you need to serve? And then which partners in your community are already serving those populations really well? Who's done the work? Who's built the trust? And that's how we're really getting the word out. And a couple of regions are really focusing on that exact thing. Like, how do we get more and new people into quality green jobs? How do we diversify this sector? Oregon is putting together a statewide marketing campaign, for example. The University of Tennessee, Knoxville is putting together a labor market intermediary and basically an internal job board where they're kind of like certified green employers can post a job opportunity. Some CBOs or training providers can say, oh my gosh, I've got the perfect person. Another CBO can say, we can provide transportation or childcare. So really just wrapping around, like, this is what it takes if we're serious about disrupting occupational segregation, and our regions are committed to it. And then Lyra, Colorado is also doing a marketing effort in rural Western Colorado, specifically in K-12. So as early as elementary and middle school, starting to talk to kids about like how cool these jobs are.
I think that's a very important component that sometimes goes missing because if people don't know about the opportunity, they will never go and try to get those skills. But then once they get the skills, are you bringing the employers in? I know GE is probably an exception because I think they're your only employer partner.
Yeah.
So that is an exception. So how do you make sure the employers are, hey, I've got this trained force. Now let's hire these people?
So, same thing as on the CBO front, we required all of our anchor partners to have employer partners. And as a part of this planning process, so before we got to this implementation phase, we had a planning phase. And a part of that was a pretty extensive labor market analysis, interviews with employers, and really documenting. We didn't require employer commitments across the board, but we did require kind of a table of here's who our employer partners are, and here's what their role is going to be. Here's the percentage of our goal job placements that each employer is going to take on. Here's what the entry level wages are going to be of those jobs. So we kind of went into this and selected the final 6 with eyes wide open, knowing that it's so critical to start this conversation with employers so we don't graduate people from training programs into the ether.
And you mentioned support. I would imagine the people that you are going after to at least make sure they understand this opportunity. So you're targeting them saying underserved populations. They might have other needs like transportation has been one that comes up, childcare. Are you working with groups to offer support systems?
Yes, absolutely. So I am racking my brain right now, and I'm pretty sure every single region of the 6 that we have has at least one dedicated CBO partner providing those wraparound supports. And we know that especially, well, across the board, but right now I'm thinking of some of our more rural partners where transportation is a huge barrier and there's not an option to get on a bus. Like, it's not that simple. One employer that we talked to, they developed kind of a carpool, just among employees, but just took on that coordination effort of, okay, who lives where, who can do pickup, here's the gas sharing, like that kind of thing. It's been really heartening to see how much these small and mid-sized employers truly care about their workforce. It's about the bottom line, but it's also about, I think, for the employers, making a difference in the lives of the people who work for them.
Where are you at in the process in trying to get to your goal, your end goal?
First, let me tell you how we got here. So we had an open application process, got 101 applications from community colleges, employers, community-based organizations, four-year universities, technical colleges. I'm sure I'm missing some, but just such a diverse array of applications. From there, selected 20 grant recipients to enter a learning phase with us. We asked a lot of questions about what are the green job opportunities? What are the climate risks? What's your vision for the future? What does an ideal future look like? And then from there down selected to 10 regions to engage in a planning phase. And now we're finally in the implementation phase. So where we're at right now is that all 6 of the regions have really refined models and blueprints for how they're going to train and place people for quality green jobs. What's happening next is getting those training programs off the ground, beginning to scale them locally and regionally, and then placing people in the jobs.
So you're going into your 3rd year. At the end of 5 years, you hope to achieve your goal. But what does success really look like on a human level? So maybe 25,000 people have a job, which is fantastic. But what does it mean to those people?
I think it will look different in each region, but if I just pull back, if I even think about someone in a green job, like in my hometown, which is a rural farming community in West Michigan, someone has a job that, of course, pays their bills, makes it so that they can come home at the end of the day on Friday and not be worried about the bills or every last expense. Like there's enough to cover the bills and a little left over. I think about someone having the freedom to take time off, paid time off, someone being able to leave at 3 o'clock to take their kid to a doctor's appointment or go to a game. I think about someone like having a drink with a friend and talking about their job and lighting up from the inside out, talking about how it makes their lives more whole and more meaningful. And it's something that they can feel proud of doing because it's making their family better and it's making their community better. You know, green is one of those words that we talked about this a little bit, but it can be divisive. It can stop the conversation. And so, what I hope people understand is that green jobs at the end of the day are jobs. And jobs now and always are good. They're good for families, they're good for communities, they're good for our economy. We need people in good jobs. And one pathway toward that is green jobs. And that's all we're talking about.
So you're not doing this alone. You're doing this with the support of Aries Charitable Foundation. How important is it to have that kind of big support in such a ambitious project?
Yes, it is so important. And I've been in the nonprofit sector my whole career. I've worked with a lot of funders, and I just encourage everyone to look at Aries as kind of a model funder in that they trust that the grantees know their communities best and know their needs. They're not overly prescriptive. They set an ambitious goal, which is important. It unites us all, it mobilizes us. It lights a fire under us, which, we need unifying goals like that. And that's a really important role of a philanthropy. But to be able to do that and to also then step back and let regional leaders lead is really exceptional.
That was my interview with Sara Vander Zanden, Director for Jobs for the Future. I'm Ramona Schindelheim, Editor-in-Chief for WorkingNation. Thanks for listening.